Pay your sister's rent or get out. Mom's voice cracked the air like glass shattering. It wasn't a question, it wasn't a plea, it was a command. The dinner table froze. Forks paused midair. Lily, my daughter, gripped her napkin tighter. She's 7, too young to understand but old enough to feel shame. Across from me, Melissa kept her eyes down. Of course she did. She never has to look anyone in the eye. The golden child, the victim, always broke, always forgiven. I breathed in slowly. My hand stayed still. I'm not paying her rent, I said, calm, final. Mom's face twisted. Her voice rose again. After everything we've done for you, get out. She wasn't crying. She was furious. Not for what I did, but because I said no. Then without warning, Dad stood up. No yelling, no warning. He stepped around the table, his fist clenched, and in one motion he slapped me so hard I hit the chair, then the floor. The plate shattered. Glass cut my cheek. And Lily screamed. That's when it began. The room went silent. I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, but because crying would give them something. And I've given enough. I tasted blood in my mouth. Warm, metallic. It mixed with the chicken I never got to finish. Lily dropped her fork. It clattered on the plate too loud in a room like this. She looked at me, eyes wide, lips trembling. But she didn't cry. She just whispered, Mom. And that broke me more than the slap. Dad didn't help me up. He didn't even look at me. He just turned back to his seat and laughed. A soft, ugly chuckle. Like I'd told a bad joke. Like watching me bleed was entertainment. You deserved it, he said, for saying no. 12 seconds. That's all it took for my parents to become strangers. 12 seconds to erase 36 years of forced obedience and quiet compliance. I wiped the blood from my cheek with the edge of a linen napkin. Then I stood up, took Lily's hand, and walked away. We didn't speak in the car. Lily held my hand the whole way. Her small fingers were warm, but mine wouldn't stop shaking. I wasn't shaking from pain. Not the cut, not the bruise blooming on my cheek. It was something colder, deeper. They weren't always monsters. At least I don't think they were. Or maybe I just didn't want to see it. I remember being 13. Dad was installing a ceiling fan in the living room. Mom stood nearby with a cigarette laughing at his bad jokes. He kissed her forehead. She giggled like a teenager. It looked like love, like a family. That same night, Melissa broke the remote. Dad blamed me, said I had sticky hands, then he smashed my Walkman on the kitchen counter. Didn't even look sorry. They always rewrote the story. Melissa was sensitive, I was stubborn. She failed upward. I carried the rest. So no, the betrayal at dinner wasn't a surprise, but the slap in front of Lily, that made it personal. Lily didn't cry that night. She just climbed into bed beside me, tucked her knees close, and whispered, Are you going to tell someone? I looked at her. So much of me wanted to say yes, to promise protection, to make it simple. But it wasn't simple. Not anymore. I shook my head. No, I said softly. I'm going to show them. The first step was silence. No calls, no texts, no explanations. Mom sent a message the next morning. You were out of line. Apologize to your father. I read it once, then blocked her number. For the first time, the silence was mine, and it felt like breathing after years underwater. That evening, after Lily fell asleep, I went to the closet and pulled out the folder, the one I started 5 years ago, when the lies first cracked, when the numbers didn't add up, when I first wondered, were they using me? Was I just useful? And inside that folder was everything I needed to remember. It wasn't thick. Just a few documents. At first, a bank statement. I didn't recognize a loan I never applied for. Then came the screenshots, emails, phone logs, Melissa's car insurance with my name on it. She told me once it was just for the discount. Temporary, she said. I believed her, because I wanted to, but the car wasn't temporary, neither was the boutique she opened, or the online store I somehow became a partner in without ever signing a thing. One day, I checked my credit and saw a debt I didn't understand. When I asked Mom, she smiled like I was being dramatic. You're helping family, she said. But no one asked me, I replied. She shrugged. Sometimes love means doing hard things. No, love doesn't mean erasing someone's name to write your own over it. Back then, I didn't fight, but I remembered. And now it was time to do something with what I remembered. I didn't rush. This wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity. Proof. I found a forensic accountant online. Quiet voice, careful questions. He didn't seem shocked when I laid it all out. He reviewed the folder, asked for access to my accounts, my credit reports, anything with my name on it. It cost more than I wanted to spend, but I said yes, because peace isn't free. A week later, he called me back. His tone was flat, but the words were sharp. They've used your identity on at least 3 active accounts, he said, all without consent. 3. I sat in my kitchen holding that number. 3 silent thefts by people who call themselves my family. He asked if I wanted to confront them, give them a warning, a chance to explain. I shook my head. No, I said, I want the knock to come on a Sunday morning while they're having breakfast. 2 weeks later, it happened. Sunday morning, cloudy, quiet, the kind of day they used to call me for brunch, but this time the knock wasn't mine. It belonged to 2 officers and a stack of papers with my name at the top. Identity theft, fraud, misrepresentation. Melissa opened the door in pajamas. Mom stood behind her mouth open. Dad walked in from the backyard, confused until he saw the badges. They didn't cry, not then. They argued, blamed confusion, misunderstanding. Melissa pointed at Dad. He said it was okay. Dad pointed at me. She's manipulating the system, but the officers didn't flinch. The papers spoke louder. My signature was forged, my credit was used, and for once my silence had a voice. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't even there. But they felt me in every line of that subpoena, and for the first time in years they couldn't rewrite the story. The house was mine. I bought it after the divorce. 3 bedrooms, a quiet yard, and a guest house in the back. They moved in just for a few months. That was almost a year ago. Melissa needed a fresh start. Mom said they'd help with groceries. They never did, but they filled the space with noise demands and guilt. After the charges were filed, I made the next move. I sent the eviction notice the same day the court summons arrived. 30 days to leave. No exceptions, no extensions. They thought I was bluffing. Mom called me, voice shaking. You wouldn't do this to your own family. I didn't answer, just ended the call. Because family doesn't steal your name, then call it love. They had used my kindness like a key opening every door I never meant to share. Now I was changing the locks. They didn't pack, not right away. They stalled, waited for me to cave, but I didn't. Then came the new plan, one I didn't see coming. They filed in family court, claimed I was unstable, said the dinner incident had traumatized Lily. They wanted custody, said I was unfit, said Lily was scared of me, that I'd created a dangerous home. I sat in that courtroom, numb but steady. I wasn't surprised, just tired. Melissa wore soft colors. Mom clutched tissues she didn't use. Dad avoided my eyes. And then Lily took the stand, tiny but clear. She sat up straight, looked the judge in the eye, and said, "My grandpa hit my mom." And he laughed. The room fell silent. No one moved, no one blinked. Truth spoken softly can still feel like thunder. The judge didn't speak right away. He just looked at Lily, then at me, then down at his notes. The silence said everything. Melissa's lawyer asked for a recess. Denied. Dad tried to interrupt. The judge raised a hand. Enough. Their claim collapsed in minutes. No custody change, no follow-up hearing, no credibility left to stand on. Outside the courtroom, Mom called after me. "Claire, please don't do this." But I kept walking. Lily beside me, her small hand wrapped around mine. They had brought us here thinking they could scare me one last time. But I wasn't scared anymore. Not of them, not of courtrooms, not of what people might say. Because Lily spoke the truth, and the truth stood taller than all their stories. This wasn't about revenge. It was about safety, about teaching my daughter that silence isn't love. We saw them again in the hallway outside the courtroom. No yelling, no more pretending, just 4 people standing in a space that suddenly felt too small. Dad looked older, thinner somehow, like something inside him had been taken away or finally revealed. He didn't shout this time, Didn't glare, just asked quietly, "Are you happy now you tore the family apart?" I stepped closer, close enough to see the sweat behind his ears, close enough to smell the sharp sting of aftershave and fear. "You slapped me," I said in front of my daughter. "You laughed while I bled. That wasn't family. That was rot." He flinched just slightly. Mom looked away. They didn't deny it, didn't fight, and that silence, that was their confession. We didn't speak again. There were no more texts, no more guilt-wrapped apologies, just distance finally real. Word got around, not through me, but through whispers, documents, and court records. Melissa lost her online store. No one wanted to partner with fraud. She took a night shift at a gas station. Minimum wage, no tips. Dad pawned his watch. The gold one he never let anyone touch, said it was sentimental. Guess sentiment doesn't pay bail. Mom, she didn't leave the house for weeks. Got kicked from her Facebook groups. Too much drama, they said. And me, I didn't feel joy. Not even relief. I felt quiet. Like a storm had passed and I was standing in the wreckage, not broken, just awake. They thought I'd come running back. That guilt would bring me home, but I was already home, and they were never part of it. At night, I still heard echoes, not voices, just memories trying to crawl back in, the way Mom used to braid my hair, the way Dad used to hum when he thought no one was listening. Tiny things, traps in disguise, but I didn't chase them, didn't replay them like old songs, because I finally understood the good moments don't cancel the damage. They just make it harder to leave. And I had already left. I tucked Lily in one night, kissed her forehead, and she asked, "Are they gone forever?" I paused, not because I doubted, but because I wanted to answer with care. "Yes," I said. "They can't reach us anymore." And for the first time I meant it. I wasn't a doormat, not a wallet, not their scapegoat. I was a mother, a survivor, and finally myself again. A month passed, no contact, no drama, just the sound of life beginning again. Then one morning an email appeared. No name, no subject, just an old address in the from line, a name I hadn't seen in years. Dad's former coworker, someone I barely remembered. Inside was one sentence I thought you should know. Your father opened an account in your name 10 years ago. Attached was a scanned document, a loan agreement. My name, my signature, except I never signed it. 10 years, 10 silent years of debt I didn't know I carried. Buried under fake smiles and Sunday dinners, I stared at the screen. Not angry, not even surprised, just cold. I closed the laptop, took a breath, and reached for a pen. Some debts aren't numbers, they're patterns. And this time, I wasn't going to ignore the pattern. I didn't reply to the email, didn't forward it, didn't rant. I just printed the document and placed it in a plain envelope. No return address, no message, only the truth folded, sealed, and waiting. Then I circled a date on the calendar. Dad's birthday. He always made it a big deal. Cookouts, speeches, old jazz records on repeat. That morning, I mailed the envelope, tracked it, made sure it arrived on time. He would open it expecting a card, a gesture, maybe even forgiveness. Instead, he got a reminder that what he thought was buried was still breathing. I didn't need revenge. I just needed him to know I remember. And now, so would he. That night, Lily and I baked a small cake, vanilla with chocolate frosting, her favorite. We lit one candle. Not for Dad, for us. For the life we were building without apology. She danced in the kitchen wearing socks that kept slipping. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in a long time. We ate on the couch, crumbs everywhere, no rules, just warmth. Outside it rained, soft and steady. I imagined the envelope arriving, Dad opening it, his fingers pausing on the forged signature. I didn't feel cruel, I felt clean, like something had finally left my chest. Lily leaned on my shoulder. "Mom," she whispered, "you look happy today." "I am," I said, not because of what I'd done, but because of what I'd stopped allowing. Some people call it closure. I call it freedom. The next morning, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. Hair undone, sweatshirt wrinkled, but there was something steadier in my eyes. I used to avoid that mirror, walk past it fast, afraid of what I'd see or what I wouldn't. But now I stood still, looked closely. No bruises, no forced smile, no voice in my head telling me to keep the peace. Just me, tired but awake, hurt but healing. I thought about everything I'd lost, their approval, their version of the story, the illusion of being the good one. And I thought about what I'd kept, my name, my daughter, my truth. Sometimes survival looks like a woman staring into a mirror and not looking away. That morning, I didn't look away, not even once. Later that day, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize, but local. I almost let it go to voicemail, almost. But something in me said, pick up. Claire, the voice was shaky, older. It was Aunt Marlene, Dad's sister. We hadn't spoken in years, not since the last Thanksgiving when she quietly slipped me $20 and whispered, you deserve better. I heard about everything she said. Her voice broke. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I waited, not cold, just cautious, letting silence do what words sometimes can't. They told us you were being dramatic. But I should have known better. She paused. They always made you the strong one, so they could be weak. I didn't know what to say, so I said the truth. Thanks for calling. It wasn't closure, it wasn't healing, but it was a crack, and sometimes light comes through the cracks. That evening, I opened the hall closet, reached for the old storage box I hadn't touched in years. It was dusty, labeled in faded ink Claire, college stuff. But inside were more than textbooks. It held pieces of the girl I used to be. A photo of me at 19 holding a scholarship letter, grinning bright-eyed before life asked me to dim myself down. Old journals, notes from professors, dreams written in the margins, New York grad school, something about writing. I had forgotten this version of me, or maybe I'd buried her beneath years of being useful, responsible, silent. I sat on the floor flipping pages, remembering the girl who wanted something more than survival. Lily peeked in, curious. Is that you? She asked, pointing at the photo. It was, I said, then smiled. But I think she's coming back. That night, after Lily went to sleep, I made a list. Not of tasks, of truths. Things I know now. Things no one can take. Saying no isn't cruelty. Love doesn't require silence. Family is not immunity. I wrote slowly, pen pressed hard against the paper, as if carving each line into something permanent. My name belongs to me. My story, too. Healing isn't loud. It was the first list I'd written for myself in years. Not groceries, not school schedules, not things to fix for other people, just truths. Mine. And at the bottom, I wrote one more line, one I didn't plan but needed to see. I forgive myself for staying too long. Then I folded the paper, slipped it into the back of my journal, and turned off the light. The house was quiet, but for once it didn't feel empty. The next morning, Lily and I walked to the farmer's market. She wore her yellow rain boots, even though the sky was clear. She likes the sound they make. I let her lead the way. We stopped for fresh bread, sampled strawberries, listened to a man play violin near the coffee cart. Simple things. But they felt new. Like a life unfolding quietly without anyone else's script. A woman at the flower stand smiled at us. You two look alike, she said. I smiled back. Yeah, I replied. She's the best part of me. Lily tugged my hand. Can we get sunflowers? We did. A full bunch, bright and wild. She carried them like treasure all the way home. It was the first Saturday in a long time that didn't feel borrowed. No tension, no waiting for a call, a crisis, an apology that would never come. Just sunshine, breadcrumbs, and sunflowers in the kitchen window. Late that afternoon, a car pulled into the driveway. Slow, familiar. My chest tightened without permission. It was Uncle Ray, Mom's brother. We hadn't spoken in years, but he always kept his distance from the drama. I opened the door. He held a brown paper bag. Lemon bars, he said. You used to like them. I let him in. We sat at the table, the same one where it all broke open, but today it held only crumbs and calm. He didn't make excuses, didn't ask questions he didn't want answers to. I heard what happened, he said. I'm sorry for not showing up sooner. I nodded. That was enough, more than I'd expected. He looked over at Lily, who was drawing at the counter. She's strong, he said. I smiled. She had to be. Before he left, he paused at the door. If you ever need help, real help, I'm a call away. I believed him, because he came without asking for anything, and that felt like the beginning of repair. The next morning, there was a box on the porch. No name, no return address, just taped edges and my name written in shaky blue ink. I hesitated. My first thought, this was another guilt offering a peace treaty I hadn't asked for. Lily stood behind me, barefoot, curious. Is it safe? She asked. I don't know, I said, but I opened it anyway. Inside photo albums, old ones, our family before the fractures, a note on top. Maybe one day you'll want to remember something good. No signature. But I knew Mom's handwriting. I closed the box slowly. Not ready. Not yet. I carried it to the closet, set it on the shelf beside my college journals. Some memories can wait. Some forgiveness, too. There's no rule that says healing has to include reopening wounds. Sometimes it just means knowing you could but choosing not to. That afternoon, I sat by the window with tea. The sun moved across the kitchen floor like it had nowhere else to be. Lily played in the yard barefoot again, her laughter light and real. Not the kind she used to fake to keep the peace. I watched her spin in the grass, arms wide, like the world owed her nothing but sky. And for the first time, I let myself feel it, the quiet victory. Not loud, not sharp, not filled with fireworks or revenge. Just this, a house with no yelling, a table without tension, a child who feels safe enough to be silly. People think justice always looks like punishment, but sometimes it looks like peace. No doors slamming, no one walking on eggshells, no weight pressing against your lungs when you wake up. Just breathing, just light, just us. Later that evening, Lily handed me something small. Folded paper, edges uneven, creased with care. I made you a flower, she said. It won't die like the real ones. It was clumsy, a paper lily with crayon petals taped in the middle to hold its shape. I held it gently. My chest ached in that quiet way love sometimes does. Thank you, I whispered. She smiled proud. It's strong, she added. Like you, I placed it in a jar on the table, right in the center where the shouting used to be, where silence now lived like a soft guest who stayed too long. That flower wasn't perfect, but it stayed. And so did we. I realized then healing wasn't a moment. It was this, a paper flower, and the hands that made it without fear. The house felt warmer that night, not because of the lights, but because for once nothing was hiding in the dark. That night, after Lily went to bed, I opened my phone, scrolled through old messages I hadn't deleted, just buried. Texts from Mom, photos of birthdays, holidays, the forced smiles between warnings. Don't bring that up. Let it go. Be grateful. I hovered over the keyboard. For a second, I wanted to write her. Not to forgive, just to explain. But what would I say? That I'm not angry anymore, that I'm tired of carrying a silence that never protected me. I typed 3 words. You broke me, then deleted them. Some things are better unsent, not because they aren't true, but because I don't owe her my clarity anymore. I locked my phone, took a deep breath, and left the weight right there on the screen. This was the new boundary, not a wall, but a locked door I no longer needed to knock on. A week later, I walked out back and opened the door to the guest house. It was empty. Finally, no furniture, no voices, no shadows clinging to the corners. They had left without a word. No note, no apology, just silence. The air smelled like dust and old perfume. Mom's kind. The one she wore to church, to court, to war. I stepped inside. The floor creaked, not from weight, but memory. This place had held their excuses, their comfort, their entitlement. Now it held space. I stood in the middle, listening to nothing, and I let that nothing fill me. Because it wasn't just an empty room. It was proof that I had made room for peace, for choice for myself. I spent the afternoon gathering what they left behind. A sweater, old mugs, Melissa's half-used notebooks filled with unfinished plans. I didn't keep anything, didn't smell the clothes, didn't flip through the pages, just packed it all into a donation box. Some things don't need closure, they just need to be gone. I labeled the box and placed it by the door. Not bitter, just finished. Lily came in, saw the box, and asked, "Are we giving that away?" "Yes," I said. "They don't need it. And we don't need to keep it." She nodded. Didn't ask who they were. Maybe she already knew. Maybe she didn't care. All that mattered was the space we were clearing, and what we'd fill it with: laughter, safety, the kind of quiet that doesn't hurt anymore. That evening, I found a letter in Lily's backpack, folded carefully, written in pencil on wide-ruled paper. It was from her teacher, a simple note. "Lily seems lighter lately. She smiles more. She's speaking up in class." I read it twice. Let the words settle. Not louder, not better, just lighter. Like something she'd been carrying quietly had finally been set down. It wasn't a medal, not an award, but it felt like the purest kind of proof that I had made the right choice. I pinned the letter to the fridge, next to her drawings, next to reminders of who we are now, not perfect, not fixed, but free in the ways that matter. That night when I tucked her in, I whispered, "I'm proud of you." She smiled, eyes already drifting closed, and whispered back, "I'm proud of you too." A few days later, Lily and I took a different route home. We passed the street where Mom and Dad used to live. I didn't mean to go that way. It just happened. A left turn instead of a right. The house looked the same: white siding, cracked driveway, porch swing hanging crooked. Lily didn't notice. She was busy pointing at a butterfly, laughing, running ahead. But I slowed down, just for a second, long enough to feel the weight that used to live in my chest start to lift. There were no cars in the driveway, no voices from the backyard, just stillness. I didn't feel fear or anger, just distance. Emotional miles between who I was back then and who I've become now. We kept walking. Lily never looked back, and neither did I. Sometimes healing isn't loud. It's a quiet step in a direction you didn't mean to take and realizing you're okay. That weekend, I saw Melissa at the grocery store, aisle 7, canned soups and paper towels. She didn't see me at first. Hair pulled back, dark circles under her eyes, wearing a gas station uniform. She looked tired, not angry, not dramatic, just small. I stayed behind the cart watching quietly, not out of cruelty, but curiosity. She picked up a can, put it back, checked the price twice before placing a cheaper one in her basket. Our eyes met for half a second. Just enough. She didn't speak. Neither did I. And that silence between us felt heavier than words. Not hate, not guilt, just the weight of choices finally catching up. She turned away first. I let her. Because some confrontations don't need scenes. They just need space to see clearly what was once so carefully hidden. Back home, I emptied the grocery bags, tossed wrappers, sacked cans in the cupboard. At the bottom of the bag, a receipt slipped loose, long crinkled, marked with a smear of red ink. It wasn't mine. It must have stuck to my hand when I passed Melissa. Her total, $18.42, paid in cash. I stood there, holding it, thumb on the faded date. It felt oddly intimate, like seeing someone's private map of survival. For a moment, I almost folded it carefully, set it aside. Some part of me still wanted to care, but then I remembered caring isn't the same as returning, and empathy doesn't always mean reopening the door. I placed the receipt in the trash. Not cruelly, just honestly. Some ties don't have to be cut. They simply disintegrate when no one's holding both ends anymore. The next day was my birthday. I didn't plan a party, didn't want candles or noise, just quiet and maybe something sweet. Lily woke me with a whisper. "Don't move," she said, and ran out of the room barefoot and determined. She came back holding a folded paper. Crayon on the edges, tape across the back. "I made you something," she said. "It's us, but happy." I opened it slowly. It was simple: 2 stick figures holding hands, a house, a sun with too many rays, and both of us smiling. No bruises, no shadows, just color. My throat tightened. I hugged her close, felt her arms wrapped tight around my neck. "You're the best present," I whispered. She giggled. "I know." And in that quiet moment, I didn't wish for anything more, because this was the life I chose to fight for. Later that afternoon, Lily and I stopped by the bookstore. It was small, tucked between a bakery and an old barber shop. She pressed her hands against the glass window. "Look, Mom," she said, "they have your favorite kind books with no pictures." I smiled. She ran inside toward the kids' corner. I wandered toward the back, drawn by instinct more than interest. There was a journal display, leather-bound, clean pages, the kind that waits for something real. I picked one up, ran my fingers across the spine, noticed my reflection in the glass behind the shelf. Calm, present, mine. I didn't buy the journal, not yet, but I made a quiet promise to write again. For me. No filters, no versions shaped by guilt or fear, just truth as it is on a page that listens without judgment. We left the store hand in hand, and for the first time in years I looked forward to what came next. 2 mornings later, I found an envelope in the mailbox. No stamp, no return address, just my name written in thick, uneven ink I knew too well. Dad's handwriting. I stood there for a long time, thumb resting on the seal, debating. Then I opened it. Inside was a check, a small one. $327.50 with repayment scribbled in the memo line. No note, no apology, just numbers. Like healing had a price. I stared at it, not angry, not moved, just still. Lily peeked over my shoulder. "Are you going to cash it?" "No," I said. And I meant it. I placed the check between 2 pages of a book I no longer read. Not to forget, but to remember that some debts aren't mine to collect. Closure doesn't always come with a signature. Sometimes it comes from walking past the bank and not going in. That weekend, I passed the pawn shop downtown. I don't usually look twice, but something in the window caught my eye. A gold watch, thin band, familiar face. Dad's, the one he never took off, said it was his mark of time earned, not given. Now it sat under fluorescent lights, tagged and priced, waiting for someone who didn't know the story behind it. I stood there for a moment, watching it tick behind the glass. Not because I wanted it back, but because seeing it there, stripped of importance, untouched by meaning, felt like closure I hadn't expected. The watch was still ticking. But his time in my life was done. I didn't go inside, didn't ask the price, just walked away. Some things are better left behind glass, visible but unreachable. Part of the past, but no longer part of me. That night, as I scrolled through my phone, a notification popped up. A group chat, family updates. I had forgotten I was still in it. Muted for years, buried beneath school emails and recipe threads. The last message was from Mom. A blurry photo of Melissa behind a counter at the gas station, captioned, "She's trying. Please be kind." No one had replied. I stared at it. The image, the quiet plea, the weight of it all wrapped in 5 words. I hovered over the leave chat button. Thumb still. Heart calm. Not angry. Not sad. Just clear. Then I tapped. Leave group, no message, no drama, just a quiet exit from a room I no longer needed to stand in. Lily walked in, held up her drawing. "Want to see my rainbow?" "Yes," I said, smiling. "Please show me everything." That evening, after dinner and dishes, after Lily's stories and soft yawns, I stepped outside alone. The air was cool. Crickets hummed like background music. The porch light flickered once, then settled into stillness. I sat on the steps with a blanket over my shoulders, watching the sky fade from blue to silver. There was no plan in my hands, no list, no defense prepared, just breath. This was the part no one tells you about what healing looks like after the storm's passed. Not dramatic, not loud, just a woman sitting quietly in her own peace. Inside, Lily slept. The paper lily still sat in the jar, slightly bent, but still standing. And me, I wasn't waiting for anything. Not the next apology, not the next attack. I was simply there, finally able to exist without shrinking. And in the hush of that evening, I realized I didn't just survive them. I had completely outgrown them. The next morning, before Lily woke up, I opened a new journal. The one I saw at the bookstore. Blank pages, no lines, no expectations. I held the pen for a while, not out of fear, but because this time I wanted the words to be mine alone. At the top of the first page I wrote, "This is not the beginning of pain, it's the beginning of me." The ink dried slow, like the truth settling in. Not rushed, not forced. I didn't write about them, not directly. I wrote about silence, about freedom, about choosing my daughter over loyalty to ghosts. Page after page, I filled the space with things I used to bury, and for every sentence I felt something loosen. Not grief, not rage, just the weight of being unheard finally lifted. Later that day, I took Lily to the park. She ran ahead, arms open, chasing wind. I sat on a bench beneath a tree, just starting to turn. Watched her laugh, watched her live, unafraid. A woman nearby smiled at me. "Your daughter's brave," she said. "She reminds me of mine." "She's stronger than I ever was," I replied. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. Because I was the one who broke the cycle, who took the slap and said no more. I wasn't the hero in their story. I wasn't meant to be. To them, I'll always be the villain, the ungrateful one, the one who exposed the rot instead of covering it. Let them call me that. Let them sit in silence wondering how I did it. Because I did. Without screaming, without begging, without permission. And if that makes me the villain, then so be it. I'm the villain who protected her child, reclaimed her name, and finally saved herself. If this story stayed with you, if you've ever been called the villain for choosing your peace, I hope you know you're not alone. Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every word. And if you want more stories like this, real voices, quiet strength, hit subscribe. There's more to come, and I'll be here telling the truth one page at a time.